Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. You know we love to get our hands dirty with the latest in cybersecurity, and today we've got some really interesting stuff to dig into.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. We've got some news bites, and honestly, some of these stories are wild.
Sounds intriguing.
Yeah, well, let me tell you, we've got AI deepfakes showing up on government screens, the surprising vulnerability of banks to disinformation, and a wild tale about a serial dater.
Hmm.
But more on that a little bit later.
Okay, so I'm already seeing a theme here.
Yeah.
And I think it has to do with just how vulnerable our systems are becoming, both the digital ones and, well, us.
Humans. Right. It's like we know about deepfakes, but you don't expect to see one popping up on screens at the Department of Housing and Urban Development. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
But then you think about the implications if someone wanted to use this maliciously. Elections, financial markets, chaos.
Exactly. And we've kind of seen it happen already with the Silicon Valley Bank collapse, right? Yeah. Online panic and rumors were definitely part of the story there.
Yeah, for sure.
And one of the news bites you shared talks about an experiment where researchers basically almost caused a bank run using AI-generated fake news.
Wow.
For only like $13, they found that 60% of the people who were exposed to the fake news said they'd draw their money.
Okay, that's seriously scary. I mean, how vulnerable are institutions to these kinds of attacks?
It's a valid concern. The tech itself is powerful, no doubt, but then you add in the fact that trust in institutions is eroding, and we've got these echo chambers online.
Yeah.
AI makes it so easy to create and spread really targeted disinformation. And when people are already primed to believe certain things, well, it's a recipe for disaster.
It's like this perfect storm. You've got powerful tech and a society that's primed to be manipulated. So, I mean, what does this even mean for the future of information?
Yeah, that's the big question. I mean, if anyone can create a deep fake or a viral lie that looks totally real, how do we even know what to believe anymore?
Right.
It really underscores the importance of being able to think critically and knowing how to evaluate the media you're consuming.
Yeah.
We have to be able to evaluate sources, recognize bias, and verify information.
That's huge.
Education is crucial, but we also need to be developing technologies that can flag disinformation.
I'm with you on that one. But hey, it's not all doom and gloom, right? I mean, AI can be a powerful force for good, too.
Right.
And speaking of which, there are the EU's new gatekeeper rules, which are basically shaking things up in the tech world.
Oh, yeah.
They're making big companies like Apple and Google open up their platforms, which is creating more competition and opportunities for smaller companies.
And, these regulations could really change the game with lower prices, more innovation, and more choices for everyone. We're already seeing it, too, like with alternative browsers like Aloha, which saw downloads increase by like 1,500% after Apple had to let users choose their default browser.
Exactly, 1,500%. It seems like these rules are really leveling the playing field, which is great.
Definitely.
But there's always a flip side, isn't there? Like, Apple argues that its walled garden approach, where they have more control, is better for security. So are we trading security for innovation?
Well, it's a tough question. I mean, a more open system could lead to more vulnerabilities, especially with smaller apps and services that might not have the resources for top-notch security.
Right.
But then again, Apple's whole thing about their closed system being more secure, well, that's not always been true either.
Oh, yeah. I mean, how many security flaws have we seen in their products?
Exactly.
So it's not as easy as saying open is good, closed is bad.
Yep.
It's a balance between choice and innovation versus the potential risks. And it's not just the EU doing this either. The UK has similar rules. And there are movements in Japan, India, and Brazil.
Yep. It feels like a global shift.
It does. It feels like the whole world wants to rein in big tech.
Yeah.
But here in the US, things seem to be moving pretty slowly.
Well, there are a couple of bills in Congress, the Open App Markets Act and the American Innovation and Choice Online Act, that are trying to address this.
Right.
But they've run into some serious opposition, mostly from tech lobbyists, so we'll have to see what happens.
It'll be interesting to watch that play out for sure. But hey,
keeping your systems safe is super important as businesses rely more and more on digital systems, and that's where turnkey cybersecurity can really help.
yeah, we're here to help small businesses just like yours make sure they're safe and sound in this crazy world of cybersecurity. And we offer a whole suite of services specifically tailored for you. So that's ensuring CMMC compliance and doing penetration testing. We also run vulnerability scans, and we can help you develop a comprehensive risk assessment.
And it doesn't stop there, right?
No, it doesn't.
We handle incident response, should the unfortunate happen, and we guide you through migrations like GCC. We just want to make sure your transitions are smooth and that you're secure.
It's all about peace of mind, right? You focus on what you do best, running your business, and we'll make sure that your digital world is safe and sound. Let's switch gears a bit and talk about something a little closer to home. Chinese hackers reportedly lurking in the GOP's emails.
Oh.
For months, they were maybe trying to get intel on Taiwan.
Hmm.
Makes you wonder, could you even spot that happening in your own organization?
These hackers are incredibly sophisticated, and they're constantly evolving their tactics to avoid detection.
Yeah.
This incident really highlights why proactive security is so important.
Like what?
Things like multi-factor authentication, regular security audits, and making sure employees know how to spot phishing scams and social engineering tactics. The report said that the hackers were very careful not to trigger any alarms.
Like not marking emails as read or forwarding things.
Right, exactly. That level of stealth makes it super difficult to detect.
It's unsettling, to think that someone could be in your digital life for months without a trace.
Definitely.
And this isn't just personal privacy, it has huge implications for national security and global relations.
Absolutely. This intrusion happened right around the same time that CISA and the FBI were warning about Chinese hackers targeting critical infrastructure.
Oh, wow.
So it really looks like a coordinated strategic approach.
That's chilling. It's a reminder that we're living in a really interconnected but very vulnerable world.
You got it.
I mean, we can't prevent every attack, but we can make ourselves less appealing targets, right?
Definitely.
But sometimes even the best security measures aren't enough to protect you from good old-fashioned human manipulation.
Which brings us to Aurora Phelps, the serial seductress who allegedly used dating apps to drug and rob her victims.
Right. Now, I know this case sounds like a crazy story,
Mm.
but what's important here is how it connects to the tactics used in cyber attacks.
Exactly.
I mean, this isn't just a femme fatale thing. It's about how she used manipulation to gain trust and then access sensitive information.
Cyber criminals use these same tactics all the time, targeting vulnerabilities, playing on emotions.
She targeted older men, exploited their trust to get into their homes, steal their money, even their identities.
It's social engineering 101. She played on human emotions, the desire for connection, the fear of missing out, the willingness to help.
And cyber criminals do the exact same thing, posing as a friend, a colleague, a romantic interest.
Anything to gain your trust?
So how do we protect ourselves from these scams,
Right.
both online and in the real world? What should we be looking out for?
It's interesting. The same principles apply whether we're talking about online dating or cybersecurity. You have to be wary of unsolicited requests for personal info or money. Always verify someone's identity if they contact you out of the blue, especially if they're asking for something.
Yeah.
And if something feels off, trust your gut.
Good advice.
It's always better to be safe than sorry.
Yeah.
And remember, if something sounds too good to be true,
It probably is.
you got it.
It's a good reminder that cybersecurity isn't just about firewalls and antivirus software.
Right.
It's about being aware of human nature, our vulnerabilities, and taking steps to protect ourselves from manipulation.
For sure.
And speaking of exploitation, our next story takes us to a really dark corner of the internet. AI-generated child pornography.
Oh, that's heavy.
It's a horrible thought, but it's a reality that law enforcement is increasingly having to face.
Yeah, Operation Cumberland, which was a huge international effort with 19 countries involved, recently arrested over 24 people who were distributing AI-generated CSAM.
Wow.
It's deeply disturbing that AI is being used to create this type of content,
Absolutely.
but it also creates a whole new set of challenges for law enforcement.
It's a double-edged sword, isn't it? AI can be used to create this horrible content, but it can also be used to help detect it and fight back against it.
Right, it's a technological arms race with some incredibly high stakes.
And the ethical implications are really complex, too. We have to be very careful how we develop and use AI to make sure it's used for good.
Absolutely. So you have to wonder, can technology actually be used to fight back against this kind of abuse?
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's not all bad news. AI is also being used to fight this kind of abuse. Law enforcement is using AI algorithms to analyze massive amounts of data, trying to find patterns and track down distributors.
That sounds intense. What does that look like in practice?
Well, for instance, they can train AI to recognize images or videos that contain CSAM, even if they've been altered or manipulated.
Oh, wow.
And they can also use it to analyze online networks, trying to identify people who are sharing or downloading this content.
So it's like having this digital detective sifting through mountains of data to find the bad guys. That's pretty amazing. But technology changes so fast. How can law enforcement keep up?
Yeah, it's a real challenge, right?
Yeah.
The digital landscape is constantly shifting, and criminals are always looking for new ways to exploit technology.
Right.
Law enforcement has to stay one step ahead, which means investing in research and development, collaborating with tech companies, and cooperating internationally, sharing info and resources.
It sounds like a global problem that needs a global solution.
Exactly.
And it really highlights the fact that technology, well, it's just a tool. It can be used for good or for bad, depending on who's using it.
Right.
But okay, let's zoom out for a minute and think about everything we've talked about today. I mean, we've covered AI, disinformation, global tech regulation, cyber espionage, and even the dark side of online dating. That's a lot.
It is a lot.
What are some of the key takeaways that you think are important for our listeners to understand?
I think one of the biggest things to take away from all of this is that cybersecurity isn't just an IT issue anymore. It's a societal issue that affects all of us. I mean, think about it. The stability of our financial institutions, the integrity of our elections, our personal safety and security, it's all connected to cybersecurity.
It's not just about protecting our devices, it's about protecting our way of life.
Exactly.
And in a world where information is everywhere, but also so easy to manipulate, well, critical thinking skills are more important than ever.
Absolutely. We need to be discerning consumers of information. We have to question assumptions, cross-check facts, and be aware of our own biases.
And these are skills we need to be teaching to younger generations, too.
100%.
Because ultimately, cybersecurity is about human behavior.
Yeah.
It's about understanding how manipulation works and developing those critical thinking skills so that we can navigate the digital world safely and responsibly.
I couldn't agree more. And that leads to what might be the most important takeaway. We all have a role to play in cybersecurity.
Oh, interesting.
We can't just sit back and expect the government or tech companies to protect us.
Right.
We need to take responsibility for our own security and the security of our communities.
So what does that look like in everyday life? What can our listeners do to become more cyber aware?
Well, there are a lot of simple but effective things you can do. Start with using strong passwords
Of course.
and enable multi-factor authentication whenever you can.
Yeah, good one.
Be careful about what you share online and watch out for suspicious emails or links. Keep your software updated
Oh, yeah, those updates.
and install good antivirus and anti-malware software.
Right.
But I think the most important thing is to stay informed about the latest cybersecurity threats and best practices.
So it's about being proactive, not reactive.
Exactly.
And realizing that cybersecurity isn't a one-time fix, it's an ongoing process.
It's a journey, not a destination. The more we learn about the threats out there and how to deal with them, the better prepared we'll be to navigate this crazy digital world.
That's a great point. It's not about living in fear. It's about being empowered to make smart choices and take control of our digital lives. And it's also about recognizing when we need help. I mean, if you're ever unsure about something, don't hesitate to ask a trusted source for advice.
Right. There are so many resources out there to help people stay safe online. You've got government agencies like CISA and the FBI, tech companies like Microsoft and Google, and a ton of reputable cybersecurity organizations.
It really does take a village.
It does. We're all in this together. And if we work together, we can create a safer, more secure digital world for everyone.
Absolutely. I love that. Well, it looks like we've reached the end of our deep dive for today. We've explored a lot of ground, from AI deepfakes to the dark web and everything in between.
We have.
I hope you found this exploration informative and empowering.
It was a pleasure diving into these topics with you, and I hope our listeners will continue to explore these issues and think about how we can make the digital world safer and more secure for everyone.
Well said. But before we go, I have one last thought-provoking question for our listeners to ponder.
Okay, I'm listening.
In an age where information is so easy to find, but also so easily manipulated, how can we cultivate critical thinking and make sure that the information we're consuming is reliable?
That's a great question, and one that we need to be thinking about seriously. I think it all starts with education. We need to be teaching critical thinking skills from a young age, showing people how to evaluate sources, identify bias, and recognize misinformation.
It's about developing a healthy skepticism, not a cynical distrust.
Yeah.
It's about being curious, asking questions, and seeking out diverse perspectives.
I love that. Curiosity is key, and so is humility.
Right.
We need to be willing to admit when we don't know something and be open to learning from others.
It's a lifelong learning process, and the
Mhm.
more we learn, the better equipped we'll be to navigate this complex digital world.
Absolutely. And, we can even take it a step further. We can use this knowledge to advocate for policies and practices that create a safer and more secure digital world for everyone.
I love that. Okay, so it feels like we've covered a lot today, from AI deepfakes and global tech regulation to the dark web and everything in between.
We have.
Hopefully, you're walking away with a better understanding of cybersecurity and feel empowered to protect yourself.
That's the goal. It's been great diving into these topics with you. And remember, stay curious, stay vigilant, and stay safe online.
Well said. And that wraps up our cybersecurity deep dive for today. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.